Okay, guys, we are moving on to part 2 of this 7-layer assignment. Okay, so in part 1, what we really talked about was how to approach the composition and the fact that it has 3 major requirements. One being that you include form, and the other 2 that you're using balance and repetition. So the difference between those vocabulary words in relation to our course is that a form is an element of art, so it's a fundamental thing, okay? And the principles of art are how do you organize those fundamental things together and make them work. So for some people, art can be a little intimidating, and the guidance that I provide to you is supposed to help reduce that intimidation and make you realize that it is really possible for anyone to make art. Of course, the people that have a lot of talent have a little easier time with it, okay? So you guys went through a period of sketching for this assignment where you are just kind of planning how you wanted them to be organized. I'll flip through these papers so you guys can see it. So you did several plans for your assignment, okay? I've got a ton of them, lots of them. Here's one that I actually kind of liked compositionally. I thought this was something that came out about the 8th or 9th time that I did this. But when I was done sketching, I started thinking about, okay, well, how am I going to fill this in? So one major difference between the sketch and the finished piece is that each and every object that you drew has to look three-dimensional. So no matter what we do, this is going to be a flat piece of paper, okay? But our goal is to make this look like it has illusions of three-dimensional objects. So right now, this, for example, is just a circle. That's a shape, an enclosed line. Whereas this is the illusion of a sphere. And a sphere might be something like this speaker here, something round that you can actually touch. So no matter what we do, this paper is not going to feel like this sphere. It's still going to be flat. But we're just trying to create the illusion that it's round and make good choices as far as what we do with our color and perhaps our graphite. So as far as coloring it and shading it, there's really no rules. You can do pretty much whatever you want. If you want this whole thing to be all a pencil drawing and you want to work with graphite, that's fine. I'm going to teach to color, okay? So, meaning I'm going to teach to the students who are wanting to use color because it's a little bit more challenging, I think, in ways than graphite, okay? So I want to move back to this word balance. The last time we talked about this in the video, if I drew a circle of a certain size on the left, I suggested to you that you would draw a circle of a similar size on the right, or perhaps split up smaller circles to where they look to add up to the same amount of surface area. So today, what I want to talk about is creating balance with color, okay? So for example, in yesterday's class meeting, I had a student select a color, and that color was red. I think it was Shalom. Shalom selected red for us. And I said, okay, where do you want the red? She said right there on that cone, okay? So I made a decision about red. And the decision was I was going to include green as an undertone, okay? I was going to put red over the top of it. And then I was going to change pressure in the middle to make it look lighter. And I was going to move it in to an area that had an undertone with yellow highlights. So I wanted to plan all that ahead of time, so that I could come up with a cone that appears to have some three-dimensional quality or makes it look round. So on this side I have a highlight and it fades to darkness. So for a cone, a lot of times you want to control the highlight, the lighter area on one side and have it fade to dark on the other side. That's a good way to do it. Or you can have the highlight down the center and have it fade out to darkness on both sides, okay? So last semester we talked about shading boxes. Just a review on that for those of you that are new or maybe just watching this video for the first time. When you shade a box that has 3 sides, just for a simple purpose of instruction at a very basic level, if you have 3 assigned values, so light, medium, and dark, typically it still maintains its three-dimensional quality, okay? A box has a rectangle or a square on the front, diagonals that transcend to a vanishing point, more than likely. The vanishing point was right here, and the back sides are parallel to the front side. Okay, so you can see that the top is parallel to the back, and that's what really makes it look like an actual three-dimensional box. Okay, for coloring this one, what I did was I put a light blue pencil on the left, and then I put regular blue on the top. And then on this side, what I did was I went straight forward with some shading. I put a soft layer of black with blue over the top. Of course, pressure changes apply. So last period, I asked the student to have a reaction. I found it fascinating, okay? In yesterday's class period, I'm not really sure what period it was. I think it was Kyle that said, I said, Kyle, pick something for me to color. And this one right here was not colored yet. And I only had this little green ball here. Kyle said, well, I want you to create some balance and put a green sphere over here on the right. Okay. Now he didn't really consider the bottom half, and that didn't really matter. He was just making an intuitive choice about where else should I have some green. So he asked me to make this sphere green, and I thought that was a great choice because it balances the green and it helps the viewer's eye move around the page. Okay, so I got that finished up, and I talked to the students about not only creating balance with color, but with the position of the highlight. So in this case, the highlight is on the top of this sphere, and I just chose to balance it by putting the highlight on the bottom of the sphere. Okay. In the same class period yesterday, at the end of the period, Manuel said, I think you should put some purple on the bottom. Okay, so I didn't share that at all. Didn't share it at all with today's class period before you guys came in. And one of the students, it was Branson in last period, he said to me, I think you should make a purple shape on the bottom. And it was so mind-blowing to me because two people who don't know each other, who weren't involved in that conversation, made the same decision about the same piece of work. And so I thought it was a good chance to talk about the different types of color. So red, orange, yellow, these are warm colors. Those that look like they communicate some kind of a heat, okay? And blue, regular green, okay, light blue, purple. They're cool colors, and they communicate something of a cool temperature or a kind of a colder feeling, okay? So visually they have the same effect on us when we're looking at artwork. But purple can go either way sometimes. So if we have a red violet or just a standard purple, it does have a bit more warmth than blue. And so I have a feeling that those two people made that suggestion because we have this really dominant warm color, and they were intuitively wanting there to be some balance on the bottom, but they also wanted it to kind of work with the blue, okay? So something kind of interesting that's happening here. I have these little triangular organizations. I've got two greens, and I'm actually adding this as a purple sphere right now. Okay, so I'm going to move there with you guys as a group. When I am going to color something with purple, I got to sharpen my pencil. Let me pause just for a moment. Then I want to do some pre-planning with my supplies, whatever I'm working with, whether it be paint or pencil, maybe even with graphite, different types of pencils that help create shadows. I sharpened the end right off of my pencil. I hope that you guys are better at sharpening pencils than me. So the first thing is I pick my color. The color is purple. When I think about purple, purple has a complementary color. Do any of you guys want to be brave and shout out in the video purple's complementary color? You guys are feeling scared? All right, that's okay. Let me show you. Purple's complement is yellow, okay? So what I did was I pulled out the yellow, and then I pulled out the black, and I pulled out the white, okay? Because I would need all of these things to have a successful sphere that's been shaded with purple, okay? Last period, the student asked me to put the highlight on the top of this sphere. Being that the highlight was on the right bottom and left top, I'm assuming she wanted to learn how to do the highlight from the center. So here's my suggestion to you. Yellow is purple's opposite if you're using yellow. You might want to map in an area where you're reflecting the curve. Okay, so when I say reflecting the curve, I'm talking about how curvy the edge of the circle is. around the object. Okay, so this is not the only way, it's just a good way to shade something that's round. If you apply the medium going around the surface area of a sphere, for example, then it will probably end up looking more three-dimensional. Okay, if we're planning something that's going to be really dark, we'll want to use different pressures, okay, meaning how hard we're pressing with our pencil, and place a little bit of black underneath our color if we're trying to make it look really dark. We don't have to use black at all. We could have also done the very same thing with yellow. It would have looked like a less intense version of purple, but in this case I want it to be really deep dark purple on the edges. So I'm pre-planning that by placing a layer of black underneath. Okay, so now I'm going to jump into actually applying the purple. Okay, when I'm going to apply the purple to this sphere here, I want to consider the pressure. Okay, so if I pressed hard with the black, I'm going to have to press a little bit harder with the purple, but understand that there's wax in these colored pencils. And as we're applying wax, the paper is only going to accept a certain amount of wax. Okay, so I want it to look violet, so I obviously don't want it to look like violet scribbled over black, so I have to be really conscious of how it's looking. The aesthetic judgment of the whole situation is something that you're responsible for. And you're going to have to go around your paper and you're going to have to make decisions about every single shape that you've drawn, and you're going to have to shade it into a form. Okay, so a form is something that is showing the illusion of a third dimension, whereas a shape is something that's flat. So when you first draw out your composition, which is where you were after part 1, then you're going to have to go back in and you're going to either have to shade them with graphite, color them in with colored pencil, or maybe you're a person who has a fancy set of Prismacolor markers or something. You can use those if you want. It's totally fine with me, you guys, if you have paint and you want to paint this, so long as you're meeting the assignment expectations, which are to show at least 7 layers of form, to have a good composition that helps the viewer's eyes move around the page, and to really focus on balance and repetition. So repetition, I think, is the easy one. If you have several of a certain form, then you've repeated it, and so therefore, as a principle of art, that principle being repetition, then you've definitely met that assignment expectation. Okay, so I want you to notice I'm 12 minutes into this video already, and I'm still working on the same sphere. Okay, so we have a deadline approaching in about a week for this drawing. You guys can reference your pacing guide for that. But if I am going to have to be turning this in a week, that means that today my composition needs to be figured out. So I need to have all the outlining finished up, so that next week I can spend next week really focusing on developing each form and making it look three-dimensional. Okay, so you guys got kind of the Cliff Notes version for the video, meaning that I obviously had a little bit of coloring finished on this before I started so that I could point it out and talk about the concepts, as opposed to making you painfully watch me color, because some of you are much better at coloring than I am. So as I'm approaching the center, I want you to realize that I am reflecting the curve, and I'm doing that not only as a way to help the viewer's eye travel over the cross contour or surface area of that sphere, but also to remind my own brain that this is supposed to look like a sphere or something that's round, okay, and three-dimensional. Okay, so this is actually three-dimensional. This is an illusion of third dimension. Okay, so I'm really just teaching you the trick on a flat paper of how to manage something that is supposed to be an illusion of a third dimension. So we're just taking these things that we learned from all the people that came before us, and we're using them to help us express ourselves creatively. Okay, so I'm looking at this and I'm judging this right now. I can still see a little too much yellow through certain parts of it, so that means I'm going to have to increase my pressure, meaning how hard I'm applying that pencil. Okay, so at this point, I need somebody in a group to be brave, and I want you to make a decision for us, and I might ask you a couple questions about it. I want you to tell me which one of these forms that are left. So I have like I have a circle here that needs to be turned into a sphere. I've got a box over here, and I've got a cone over here, all these little cones. Which one of these do you want me to do next? And what color do you want it to be? Or would you like it to be shaded in graphite? So anybody, you guys want to pipe up and tell me what to do next?
Which other shapes are left?
Okay, so I have a box right here. I've got a sphere here. I have a cone. I have a big giant sphere in the back right here. Got another sphere. There's another sphere here and a couple cones. So I'm looking for your decision. What color, or if you want it to be graphite, I have a graphite one here too as well. So what color and which of those remaining shapes do you want me to transform into a form?
The cone?
Which one?
The cone on the left?
This one? Or this one?
Yes.
That one.
Yeah, that one.
What color?
What color is that? We should do that. Is that like an orange or is that a red? The one you've already done?
This right here is it's yellow under red orange, and it transcends into regular red.
Okay, how do you make it, have you done like a purple?
Well, these two are purple. These two are purple. I'm not sure if you guys can see that very well on your side. These two are purple. Sorry, what?
It looks like graphite to me, sorry.
Oh wow, I can actually see. Yeah, I can see that. I want to make a suggestion, and you tell me what you think about this. So, triangular patterns tend to move viewers' eyes pretty well. So, what do you think about green? Like, what if I went back to green, but it wasn't the same as this?
I was actually gonna ask you, yeah, because it would fit the balance to have like a green there.
So if I put green, green, and green, you think that would look pretty good and it would make kind of a visual triangle?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, sorry that looks like graphite to you. It is purple. That's interesting though. It's something that that I'm learning from this whole situation is that sometimes the colors aren't as vibrant from your display as they seem to be on mine. So noted. Okay, but we'll go to green, and let's just talk about our options with green before I actually put it down. So I can make it yellow green like this, but I already know I don't want it to be that straightforward just on a point of education. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use the green, the regular green, the darker green, and the white and the black, and that's all. That's all I'm going to use. So I'm going to get rid of this yellow color, and I'm just going to eliminate it because I feel like it's going to make it too warm. Okay, so it's actually over a purple sphere, and sometimes having like areas that are calming for the eye are nice for the viewer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase some of these marks outside of it that are inside the sphere that I think might interfere with my color. I'll make sure that I have just enough to where I can see where it was. And then Breeza, since you helped me choose that color, where would you like the highlight to be? Do you want it on one side? Do you want it in the middle or on the bottom? Okay, so it's going to be kind of like this one then, where it's lighter on one side and then it fades.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm going to do this time is, instead of shading vertically like I did on this one, I'm going to shade around the cross contour of this cone so you guys can see what that might be like. So she said put the highlight on the bottom, which is right here. Okay, so I'll find this edge a little bit, just lightly, with the black. And then what I can do is I can approach it the very same way that I did the circle and apply a bit of a shadow that's kind of crawling around the surface area of that cone. Okay, so if I'm moving my medium, whatever I'm working with, again, whether it's a marker or it's a graphite pencil or even a paintbrush, I think about this and do this with a paintbrush as well. If I go over the surface area in the direction that I would be able to pass my hand over the object, or if I'm really one of those people that has a wild imagination, if I was a little tiny bug crawling across this object, what path would I have to take? And I try to like imagine where its feet were. Okay, that's where I'm going to draw my little marks. So I actually have a little bit of a shadow happening going around this right now. I'm going to add a little bit more drama just by adding some more pressure on the edge. And then I'll start mapping in with the regular green. Okay, so again, this was all about balance, but hopefully you're also noticing how inherent they are with each other. If we balance something by repeating something, then obviously we're also including repetition. So a lot of times the principles go hand in hand, and many times a lot of people will make very similar decisions or conclusions based on, just like their thought patterns. But you guys all are going to come up with something that looks very, very different. Okay, so just give me about 30 seconds here before you leave class. I know the bell rang. I want to just drive a couple points forward here. I'm looking for an assignment that's finished, the whole interior of your measured border. Okay, now this right here does not have the formal border space as is required in the assignment. You guys should definitely reference the video for drawing your formal border on your project. Okay, so sorry, the phone is ringing, of course, during the video. So this has to have a perfect 1-inch border, and everything inside needs to be completed, and everything that you draw has to be handled so that it looks like three-dimensional form. So you're looking for 7 layers, so that's how many things are stacked on each other. So 1, 2, 3. I need to be able to count 7 layers, but you get to count the background. Okay, a couple people have asked me, do I have to color the background? And I would definitely advise you to do so. You need to do something in the background. Even if you bring a color from the edge and fade it away to the middle, then you've established the background without having some cheesy outline for the border. Okay, so 23 minutes, not so bad for part 2. I hope that this video helps you, and obviously if you've been paying attention in class and you also have this video for a supplement, I think you guys are going to do really well. Okay.